Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. We're so glad you're joining us for another deep dive. And today, well, we're tackling a question on many minds. Is Nebius Group NV a good time to buy now?
Yeah, it's an absolutely fascinating company to look at, isn't it? Especially given its position right in the middle of the rapidly evolving AI infrastructure space. We've really, dug deep into the sources provided, trying to pull out the most vital information to give you a comprehensive, sort of nuanced look at Nebius Group, everything from its core financials to market sentiment and those really crucial future catalysts.
Right. And our mission, as always, is to give you that shortcut to being well informed, highlighting the most important nuggets of knowledge so you can connect the dots and hopefully make sense of the bigger picture. Before we unpack this, if you find this deep dive helpful, please do remember to subscribe, like, and comment. It really, really helps us bring more of these deep dives directly to you. And if you're feeling extra generous, maybe consider buying us a coffee. It supports our ongoing research. Okay, now let's truly get into Nebius Group NV. So let's start where any good investment analysis should begin, right? Peering under the hood at Nebius Group's core financials. What are the numbers telling us about the fundamental health of this company?
Well, what's immediately striking is the contrast, I think. You see Nebius Group reporting revenue of $161.4 million on a trailing 12-month basis.
Okay, that sounds
So
promising.
it does sound like a solid foundation, yeah, especially for a tech company in such a high-growth sector. However, and this is the big but, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's also reporting a significant net loss. We're talking $438.5 million for that exact same period.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that translates directly into a negative EPS of negative 1.84. So, I mean, in essence, the company is undeniably unprofitable right now. And this brings up that critical question for any investor, you know? Despite generating revenue, can Nebius Group actually pivot to sustainable profitability? And if so, how?
That's a really stark difference. And with such a large net loss, what does that imply for, say, their debt levels or maybe more importantly, their cash flow? The sources didn't give us explicit figures on debt, did they?
No explicit debt figures were provided in what we looked at. But, that hefty net loss, it's a bright red flag for a potential cash burn. Now, this isn't totally uncommon for growth-focused tech companies, particularly in these really capital-intensive sectors like AI infrastructure.
Wait, they're investing heavily.
Exactly. They're often in a race to capture market share, pouring money into R&D, into expansion, basically hoping future revenue will eventually outweigh current expenses. The real question then becomes, how long can they sustain that burn rate? Especially without needing to raise additional capital, which, as you know, could dilute existing shareholders.
That makes perfect sense. But looking beyond the balance sheet for just a moment, where does Nebius Group truly stand in its industry? How does it carve out its own niche in this, well, pretty competitive AI space?
Right. Well, Nebius Group is positioned squarely in the AI infrastructure sector, and that sector is absolutely booming right now. They're not just offering like one piece of the puzzle. They seem to be aiming to be a full stack player.
Full stack.
Meaning,
Stack.
imagine a complete ecosystem for AI workloads. Everything from large GPU clusters that's for the heavy computing power all the way to sophisticated AI development tools. Plus, there are business units like Toloka AI, which focuses on data labeling, and Triple Ten, which is an educational platform for tech talent. Well, it suggests a diversified approach. Yeah, trying to offer AI-related services across the board. This puts them firmly in a rapidly expanding high-demand sector, aiming to capture value at multiple points of the AI lifecycle, you see.
Okay, so we understand the financial landscape, the losses, but also their strategic position. But given those fundamentals, that revenue, but also those significant losses, how do we even begin to value a company like this? Traditional metrics must be a bit tricky here.
You're absolutely right. This is exactly where traditional valuation metrics kind of hit a wall. Because Nebius Group is currently operating at a loss. Its PE ratio, that common valuation tool, it's just not applicable. It's negative.
All right, no earnings.
Exactly. And there's no forward PE available either, which means analysts aren't yet projecting profitability within that usual 12-month forward window. So it forces us really to look at other indicators to try and gauge its market worth.
Okay, so what about things like its market capitalization and its inherent volatility? How does Nebius Group tend to move within the broader market?
Well, Nebius Group currently commands a market cap of approximately $11.4 billion.
Which is pretty substantial.
It's very substantial, yeah, especially for a company that's still technically in its growth phase and, as we said, burning cash. And when we look at its beta, it stands at 1.15.
Okay, so higher than one.
Right. That indicates above-market volatility.
Hmm.
To put that in perspective for you, if the broader market were to move 1%, Nebius Group stock would, on average, typically move about 1.15% in the same direction. So for you, the investor, this just means it's a stock that could experience larger swings, both up and down, than the overall market. Greater potential gains, but also greater potential losses.
Okay, now this is where it gets really intriguing, I think, for a company with those kinds of numbers. What are the professional analysts saying, especially about where they see the price heading?
Yeah, this is interesting. Despite the lack of those standard profitability-based valuation metrics, the analyst community actually has a remarkably consistent strong buy rating on Nebius Group.
A strong buy.
Yes, and the average price target from these analysts is $60.67.
Okay, and where's the price now? Around $47, $48.
Yeah, exactly. Around $47.08 currently. So if you compare that target to the current price, that represents a significant potential upside, about 26.82%. This strong optimism suggests that, well, while the company is unprofitable now, analysts are looking beyond the current numbers. They seem to be betting on the massive long-term potential of its position in AI infrastructure, basically believing its fair value is substantially higher than what the market is currently assigning it.
Okay, so beyond the fundamental numbers and that optimistic analyst consensus, what do the charts and the recent price movements tell us? Do they align with that analyst view, or is there maybe a different story unfolding on the technical side?
Well, from a purely technical perspective, the stock has seen a bit of a recent dip. It fell from around $50.19 down to $47.84. And short-term indicators, things like the MCD, that's the moving average convergence, divergence, tracking momentum, and specific pivot points, they're actually flashing a sell signal right now.
A sell signal, so short-term pressure.
Suggests short-term pressure? Yes. However, if we sort of zoom out a bit and connect this to the bigger picture, the short-term moving average is still sitting above the long-term average. And generally that's considered a bullish sign, indicating that despite these recent pullbacks, the underlying trend over a longer period might still be upward. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed message from the charts, really.
Mixed messages. So if it's mixed, are there clear levels where we might expect the price to find either, resistance on the way up or maybe support on the way down?
Oh, absolutely. Technical analysis points to these levels. For Nebius Group, the resistance level, that price point where selling pressure tends to pop up and potentially stop an upward move, looks to be near $51.15.
Oh, okay, $51.15.
And on the flip side, we see pretty strong support around the $45.14 mark. That's a level where buying interest tends to kick in, potentially preventing further drops. These levels are, really critical for understanding potential entry and exit points for traders.
Yeah. Right. And what about the overall volatility based on these technical signals? Does the stock tend to make sharp moves, or is it more of a steady kind of climb or fall?
Well, that beta of 1.15 we talked about, combined with a volatility percentage of 12.45%, it really confirms moderately high volatility for the stock.
So not for the faint of heart, maybe.
Perhaps not. It certainly isn't a sleepy stock. It can definitely move significantly in either direction. It could be a bit of a roller coaster. Looking at the Relative Strength Index, the RSI, which measures the speed and change of price movements, it's sitting around 56.89 right now.
Which means?
Which suggests it's neither really in overbought territory, signaling it might be due for a pullback, nor is it in oversold territory, suggesting it's maybe ripe for a bounce. It's relatively neutral, kind of hovering there in the middle ground.
Okay, so we've got the core financials, how analysts view it, what the charts are hinting at. But how is the broader market feeling about Nebius Group right now? Is there a general mood, a sentiment that's influencing its price?
Yeah, the present market sentiment for Nebius Group is, well, distinctly bearish. If we look at something like the Fear and Greed Index, it's currently at 39.
39? So that's in the fear zone.
Exactly. It clearly indicates investor fear. This tells us the collective mood out there is cautious, maybe even apprehensive about this stock or perhaps the market in general right now.
Now, that's a significant contradiction, isn't it? We just heard about a strong buy consensus from analysts, but the market mood is fearful. How do we reconcile that disconnect? Are analysts seeing something the broader market is missing? Or is the market just being overly reactive, maybe?
That's a fantastic point and probably one of the most important distinctions for you to grasp here. While the short-term market sentiment is often driven by fear reacting to daily news, economic worries, price fluctuations, that strong buy consensus from 3 different analysts.
With targets up to $80, you said?
Right, targets ranging from $47 all the way up to $80. That represents a much more long-term fundamental outlook. Think of it like Analysts looking at the blueprint for a future skyscraper. They're confident it'll eventually be built and profitable, maybe years down the line. The market, on the other hand, is currently watching the construction site, seeing the ongoing costs, maybe some temporary delays, construction dust, and getting nervous about the immediate picture.
That's a helpful analogy.
Yeah, both perspectives are valid in their own way, but they're operating on different timelines and using different filters. Analysts are looking at the foundational growth trends of AI and Nebius Group's strategic positioning. The market's reacting more to current financials and the day-to-day news flow.
Right, that clarifies it well. Were there any insights provided in our sources regarding, say, insider activity? Are company executives buying or selling shares? Or maybe how social media sentiment might be playing into this?
No, the sources unfortunately didn't provide specific data on insider buying or selling activity, nor did they really touch on broader social media sentiment surrounding Nebius Group. Those would certainly be interesting additional data points to layer into this analysis, maybe for a future deep dive if that information becomes available.
Definitely. Okay, looking ahead then. What specific events or developments could potentially move the stock price for Nebius Group in a big way? What are the upcoming catalysts we should be watching for?
Well, the most immediate and I'd say undoubtedly significant upcoming catalyst is their earnings report that's scheduled for July 30, 2025.
Okay, end of July next year. That's a key date.
A very key date. That quarterly report will provide crucial clarity on their financial trajectory. Are losses shrinking? Is revenue accelerating? How's the cash burn? It will almost certainly lead to significant stock movement, depending, of course, on whether they meet, beat, or miss those market expectations. It's always a pivotal moment for these growth companies.
Makes sense. What about longer-term drivers? Beyond just that immediate earnings report, what could sustain interest and growth over, say, months or even years?
Right. Given Nebius Group services this rapidly expanding AI infrastructure market, the broader macro adoption of AI itself, and the continuous innovations within the AI sector, those will act as incredibly strong long-term catalysts.
So the whole AI wave lifts their boat.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Think about the continued rollout of new AI models, increased adoption by big companies, breakthroughs in AI applications. The success of AI as a whole is pretty intricately tied to the success of companies providing its foundational infrastructure, like Nebius Group, which, leads us to ask that crucial question. How much does the exponential growth of AI as a technology really impact the specific growth prospects of Nebius Group? It's eventually a rising tide, but they still need to prove they have the right ships, so to speak.
That's a great point about the symbiotic relationship with the broader AI market. Were there any other specific product launches or maybe significant merger and acquisition events mentioned in the data that could serve as catalysts?
No explicit product launches or M&A events were reported in the current data we had access to. It seems like the primary focus for future movement really rests heavily on their financial performance reporting and, of course, that overarching growth story of the AI industry itself.
Okay, let's pivot now to the potential pitfalls.
All right.
Every investment comes with risk, obviously. What are the key risks associated with investing in Nebius Group, and what should someone be particularly cautious about here?
Well, the primary risk, as we've kind of touched upon already, is undeniably financial. Those significant net losses we discussed, they signal a very real cash burn risk.
Yeah.
For a company operating this way, the need for future profitability isn't just like a nice-to-have goal. It's an existential necessity to sustain operations long-term.
Right. They need to turn it around eventually.
Exactly. If they can't achieve that, or if they need to continually raise capital, perhaps at unfavorable terms, that presents a major hurdle for investors.
And what about the volatility we mentioned earlier? Is that a significant risk factor for different types of investors?
Oh, absolutely. With that beta greater than 1.15 specifically, and the recent price fluctuations we've seen, volatility risk is definitely present. For investors who are maybe less comfortable with significant price swings, this stock might feel, as I said, a bit like a roller coaster. It can move significantly, offering both quick gains but also sharp corrections.
Okay. What about the industry itself? Is the AI infrastructure sector particularly challenging?
It is. The AI infrastructure sector is both intensely competitive, lots of players vying for position, and incredibly capital intensive. Building and maintaining those large GPU clusters, developing sophisticated AI tools, it requires massive ongoing investment.
So big barriers to entry, maybe?
Big barriers, and it presents its own set of sector-specific risks. Companies are constantly battling for market share, for talent, all while needing very deep pockets. And just to reiterate, for short-term traders, that current bearish market sentiment and those recent technical sell signals, They definitely suggest a cautious approach is warranted right now. You'd be swimming against the immediate tide, which can be tricky.
Lastly, on risks, just quickly, is liquidity a concern for this stock? Could an investor easily buy or sell shares without significantly moving the price?
Uh, Based on the data, with a trading volume of roughly 9.5 million shares, Nebius Group is considered fairly liquid.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, so for most individual investors, buying or selling shares shouldn't pose a significant challenge or lead to, undue price impact. It's certainly not an illiquid stock where you might struggle to find a buyer or seller easily.
Okay, so after diving deep into all these different aspects, the financials, the valuation puzzle, the charts, market sentiment, those future catalysts, and the very real risks, what's the overall assessment? What's the sort of final recommendation or maybe just the bottom line for Nebius Group?
Okay, so based on the entirety of our sources, the overall assessment for Nebius Group comes in, let's say, at a 5 out of 10,
Yeah.
kind of right down the middle.
A 5 out of 10. Okay, can you break that down a bit?
Sure. Let's look at the components. Fundamentals, we rated the 5. Why? Strong AI positioning, yes, but it's currently loss-making and unprofitable. Big counterbalance there. Valuation gets a 6, a bit higher because, while there are no standard profitability metrics, those consistent analyst price targets do suggest notable upside potential. Technicals are a 5. Again, mixed signals, short-term sell signals, but a longer-term bullish trend, with that clear resistance at $51.15 and support down near $45. News and sentiment score a 4. Reflecting that bearish market sentiment and fear, despite the strong analyst buy ratings, that disconnect pulls it down. And finally, the risk profile is also a 4. This highlights the high volatility, the current losses and cash burn risk, and that intense sector competition.
Right, that breakdown helps. So, given that overall picture, if someone is considering an entry, what's maybe the best price range to look at? And crucially, for whom is this stock most suitable? Is it for everyone or really is a specific type of investor profile?
Okay, good questions. Based on the technicals and analyst data, the, let's say, better entry price range for Nebius Group would likely be somewhere between $45 and $48.
So, closer to that support level.
Exactly. That puts you closer to those identified support levels and comfortably below that immediate resistance near $51.15. It potentially offers a better risk-reward profile for entry. Now, who is it for? For short-term trading, I'd say caution is definitely advised right now, mainly due to that current bearish momentum and the technical sell signals.
So, maybe wait.
Yeah, a short-term trader might consider waiting for a confirmed breakout above that $51.15 resistance level, or perhaps a very clear reversal signal from current levels before jumping in. If you do decide to trade it short-term, a tight stop-loss below support, maybe around $44.50, would be prudent. Your first take-profit target could be near that $51.15 resistance, with potential upside stretching towards the analyst average target around $60 if a significant breakout actually happens.
Okay. And for the long-term folks?
Right, for long-term investment, given the undeniable AI growth potential and those strong analyst buy ratings, Nebius Group certainly has, good potential long-term upside. However, and it's a big however, that upside is highly contingent if, and only if, the company can demonstrably improve profitability and execute well on its full-stack strategy. So really, this stock is far more suitable for risk-tolerant investors, people with a longer investment horizon, thinking 1 year, maybe more, who are willing and able to weather potential volatility while the company hopefully grows into its ambitious vision.
Got it. So just to summarize then, it sounds like Nebius Group NV is really a classic high-risk, high-potential tech stock. It's firmly positioned in that booming AI infrastructure space, currently unprofitable, facing bearish short-term market sentiment, but it does enjoy strong analyst support and has those promising long-term prospects if it can navigate the significant financial hurdles. It's a compelling but definitely complex story.
That really wraps up our deep dive into Nebius Group, I think. It's a quintessential example, isn't it? A growth stock in a high-demand sector balancing significant, exciting potential with very considerable tangible risk. It really challenges you as an investor to look beyond the immediate headlines and current numbers.
Absolutely. We truly hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, more informed picture, pulling out those vital insights from all the available sources we looked at. What stands out most to you about Nebius Group and its future prospects after this discussion?
Yeah, and thinking about that, it brings up a crucial question for anyone looking at a growth story like this, right? As the AI sector continues its, frankly, explosive growth, what specific milestones or announcements from Nebius Group, beyond just simple revenue increases, would truly indicate a turning point? A real shift from its current unprofitability towards sustainable long-term growth that a long-term investor could latch onto? Are we talking about hitting a specific profit margin target, announcing a major new enterprise client win, or maybe something else entirely? What's that key signal?
This is exactly. Definitely something for you to mull over as you consider your own investment strategies and risk tolerance. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. We'll look forward to exploring another fascinating topic with you again soon.